Let's take a moment to reflect. Close your eyes and think of as many films and TV shows that you've watched and list them in your mind as you come up with them. Think of the media you consumed last night, this morning, or a few minutes ago. Think of any content you've heard that was really good and should add to your watch list. Maybe something you really enjoyed watching a few years ago, or maybe even something you didn't enjoy. Now think of a time you felt really connected to a character or story being told in a film or TV show. Did you relate to a character because they looked like you, had the same interests, lifestyle, or struggles? Did you feel a deep connection to a story because you've experienced something similar yourself? Did you feel a sense of validation and feel seen as a person because of this? How easy was it for you to think of a specific instance where you felt represented in the media? For the queer community, it may not be as easy. With queer representation in the media slowly increasing in the past few years, we still have to ask if there is enough representation for all members of the LGBTQ+ community. Is any group being excluded or underrepresented? And what work still needs to be done to ensure that everyone feels seen and heard? Let's take a look at current LGBTQ+ representation in the media as we explore Pride on screen. Representation for any marginalized group is an ongoing battle as work continuously needs to be done to ensure inclusion and equity for all. The LGBTQ+ community in particular is made up of many diverse individuals and groups that are not being represented enough and even not being represented at all. According to a Nielsen report from 2020, 4.5% of the US population are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender people. And as we have explored previously, it seems like the community is being well represented in the media. However, as Stacey de Armas, Nielsen's Senior Vice President for Diverse Consumer Insights, said in an interview with NBC News, quote, "When we look deeper and at intersectional groups, it's clear there is a need for greater diversity in LGBTQ representation. White LGBTQ people are most represented on screen, while female LGBTQ people of color and Latinx LGBTQ people are below parity compared to their population estimates. It's one thing to get queer people on screens, but it's another thing to get queer people of color, diverse gender expressions, and different body types be represented on screens as well." To see who's being represented in the media today, we could take another look at GLAAD's Where We Are on TV report for 2022 to 2023. As we mentioned in a previous episode, this report analyzes LGBTQ+ representation on television. GLAAD reported that for streaming shows, lesbian representation has been increasing from year to year, but are still less represented than gay men. Out of the 356 LGBTQ+ characters in streaming, 107 are lesbian characters. Additionally, bisexual representation in streaming has decreased this year with 84 characters. In comparison, this is a decrease of 29 characters from last year. GLAAD also reported that 4 characters on streaming shows are asexual, all of which appear on Netflix programs. There are also 16 transgender characters in streaming and is a decrease of 10 characters from last year. Most notably, GLAAD stated that of the 356 LGBTQ characters in streaming, 101 characters will not be returning as a result of series cancellations or endings, character deaths, or anthology formats. This report also stated that for the 4th year in a row, there are more LGBTQ+ women on broadcast television than LGBTQ+ men, with 55% being women, 41% being men, and 4% being non-binary. As we see from these graphics from GLAAD's report, women are represented more in broadcast, but male representation is still dominant on cable and on streaming. Regarding race and ethnicity, GLAAD reported that LGBTQ+ characters of color saw a significant decrease on broadcast when compared to last year's report. Of the 101 queer characters counted on broadcast, 48 are people of color, a decrease of 34 characters from their last report. However, queer characters of color increased on cable, and over half of the queer characters counted on streaming are characters of color. GLAAD also reported a decrease of transgender characters, with 32 characters counted this year and 42 characters counted last year. Of the 596 LGBTQ+ characters counted on broadcast, cable, and streaming, 32 are transgender, and these characters appear on 28 series, 5 of which have already been canceled. Of the 32 transgender characters, 16 are trans women and 11 are trans men, with 5 being non-binary trans characters. 12 of the trans characters are white, 3 are Latinx, 3 are black, 3 are Asian Pacific Islanders, 2 are multiracial, 1 is indigenous, and 1 is Middle Eastern. However, there are no trans characters with a disability. Of the 596 LGBTQ+ characters GLAAD has counted, only 27 have a disability. According to a study by the Movement Advancement Project from 2019, LGBTQ+ people are more likely to have a disability than the general population, and current queer representation of characters with disability in TV shows is much less than actual population estimates. I encourage you to take a look at GLAAD's Where We Are on TV report, and I will link it in the description below as much more information and insight is provided there. It's important to remember that queer representation isn't just about seeing queer characters and stories on our screens, but making sure that the representation being presented is diverse and represents many individuals and groups that make up the queer community. With over 20% of LGBTQ+ characters counted in GLAAD's report not returning in next year's report due to series endings or cancellations, inclusive storytelling should be a priority as queer representation in the media increases from year to year.